I wish that happened when I walked in my house. They get noisier and then ignore me. So that's the normal. Good morning. Hopefully everyone's off to a great start of International Women's Day. So welcome to Goodwill. How many of you, this is your first time in our building? Oh, wow, we got a lot of newcomers. So it's great to see all these fresh faces. We've been doing this for a few years now, and hopefully this year will be the very best. I'm Keith Parker. I have the great honor of being the president and CEO of Goodwill of North Georgia. And you are in the midst of one of 154 Goodwills around the country. We're set up similarly to Boy Scouts and Boys and Girls Clubs and United Ways and that sort of thing. We have a territory. And our territory is 45 counties. It goes as far south as Griffin and goes north to the border states. But you'll be very pleased to know that of that 154 Goodwills, you're in the midst of the #1 Goodwill in the nation. #1 for 4 years in a row of putting people to work. When I had the great honor of taking on this incredible opportunity, the reason why I wanted to do it after leaving a career in public transit, where I served a number of places around the country, I wanted to do it because when I thought about all the tremendous successes that Atlanta enjoys, to me the most pernicious problem, the most pernicious and ongoing, I'll even call it failure of our region, is that if you happen to be born poor in this region, and particularly in this city around certain zip codes, the odds of you being poor in those zip codes is you'll be in poverty at a 96% level, 96% chance that you'll be in poverty. You'll live your entire life in poverty, and you'll die somewhere between 11 and 20 years younger than people who live just 3 miles away. We are the very worst in the country of economic mobility. If you're born poor, it's tougher to get out of poverty here in Metro Atlanta than it is in many third world countries. We can do better. So when I thought about what I wanted to do next, what's the quickest way, what's the most fundamental way you can change an individual and a family's trajectory? Education, of course, is huge. Taking care of a number of other things is huge. But the quickest way to move a person and their family and their nearby community out of poverty is get at least one person in that household a job. And not just a job that moves them from unemployed poverty into employed poverty, but give them a path of a job, better job, and a career. And that's what we've been doing here at Goodwill of North Georgia. And I'm pleased to report that in this 5 or so years that I've had a chance to lead a great team of almost over 3,000 people now, we've helped over 120,000 people find jobs and moved over 50,000 families out of poverty and into the working class. So thank you for all you've done to help support us in that. We do it through culture. We love where we work. That I often go and visit with our various team members, wherever they be in the stores, they may be working in our facility services and our career services group. But I often hear people tell me they bleed Goodwill blue and they love working for this company. And it shows up that while many agencies are struggling to try to find people, in our retail stores, we're 100% at capacity, 100%. And our retention numbers are better than even our friends from Chick-fil-A. Just saying. I see Rose is jotting that down. So yeah, just saying. And we've done it because we've made a concerted effort of meeting our team members where they are and giving them hope and a path of where they want to be, always with dignity, always with love, and always with a mindset of moving towards the future. So we're thrilled to be here again for the third, I think this is our third in-person International Women's Day, right here in this facility. We've had Rose, Scott, each of those, so it's always been dynamic, and you never know exactly where the conversation is going to turn when Rose is in charge. But we've seen, again, great new faces each year, so I'm so thrilled that we've got such a big crowd of new folks this time. We've been in this women's business for a while at Goodwill, that we are one of the employers that really tries to find non-traditional ways of moving women out of difficult situations and into better situations. So our non-traditional programs such as forklift operation and women in construction and women in transportation, these are things that we pioneer at. And when you can move a person who may be making $7.50 an hour and an entry-level job to a $22 an hour welding job, that's life-changing. That's community changing. That's community building. And we've literally got dozens and dozens and dozens of programs like that that meet people where they are and help give them hope and path to where they want to be. So we've got some partners in doing that. The biggest that you're going to hear from a lot is Accenture, helping sponsor this program with us for the second year in a row as a sponsor, and now stepping up even more with more and more partnerships that we're doing. But I also want to give a big shout out to the folks from Coca-Cola. The Coca-Cola Foundation has supported our efforts with moving women from, again, entry level and into better jobs and onto greater careers to the tune of $300,000 recently in a big grant. So let's give Coca-Cola, the Coca-Cola Foundation, a warm thanks. I understand that we're in the AJC today with the announcement of that award, so that's a great piece too. But we've got a number of really exciting programs, one of which is our EV program. And some of you had an opportunity to go and tour the facility. And I've got two current bosses in the room and one former boss. The former boss is Charles Merriweather. He always sits in the very, very back of the room. Charles was a 41-year Goodwill board member. Now, he started when he was one, but he recently left our board. But Charles, thank you for the continued support and all you do for us. Another one of my bosses is Allison Blair. So Allison, you'll take a wave. She helps us recruit other board members with her role at Korn Ferry. And then my boss, she's made quite an impression since she joined our board. Third year now, I think, in third year. Because she's so shy and understated, and it takes a lot to get her to tell us what she's thinking. But no, she has been an absolute dynamo since joining our board 3 years ago. She told me, we had an incredible array of people who wanted to join the Goodwill board, and Allison was helping us recruit those folks. And Winifred literally looks me in the eye and tells me, well, Keith, if you all don't appoint me this year, that's all right, I'll be back next year. And we were smart enough to appoint her right away. And so she has been nothing but fabulous ever since. So she's going to come tell us about the EV program and more things with Accenture. So without further ado, Winifred Cox, please come on up.
All right, now, they put I'm every woman when I walked on there. I like that. And I brought my computer because I'm a little shy. So I need to bring my computer to make sure I knew what I was talking about on here. And they gave me 15 minutes this morning, y'all, so I'm going to use every single one of them. All right, so good morning. Good morning. All right, it is my honor, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the Joint Accenture Goodwill International Women's Celebration, where this year our theme is Be Without Limits. And this is to spotlight, to remind us the limitless, barrier-free, unhindered opportunities that women have that are open to us all if we step into them. Be Without Limits means freedom. Freedom to challenge orthodoxies, freedom to bring ideas to the table, to innovate, freedom to dream big. And what does it mean to be without limits? And like I said, they gave me 15 minutes, I'm gonna take my time. Be without limits, we're talking about dreaming without limits, growing without limits, thriving without limits, living without limits. This theme should unify us in a way that no other theme has, because it says that we define our destinies. And it gives us the permission to dismiss any barrier or ceiling or limiting belief that anything or anyone tries to place on us. It also means that there's room for all of us. It means that we can open the door and we can leave it open because there is no limit, and I ain't talking Master P. If you know, you know, right? It means that no matter where you are, where you came from, no matter what your zip code is, no matter what your race is, no matter how much money your mama had or your daddy made, or even if your daddy was there, it does not matter. There is no limit to where you can go, to where you can be, period, with a T, right? I'm not telling you this because I read about it. And let me remind you, those of you that have heard my story, that I had to believe a long time ago that I, in fact, had no limits. As that poor little black girl born in abject poverty in Pensacola, Florida, and if you don't know the difference between abject poverty, I try to remind everybody that you need to ask somebody because it's not the same as poverty. To an addicted mother, teen mother, raised by my grandparents with low literacy on public assistance. So I had to believe without a shadow of a doubt that there were no limits that could keep me from my destiny. And because I believed it, because I knew it in the depths of my being, I can stand before you as a proud and humble servant, as a director on the Goodwill of North Georgia Board of Directors, where every day we are committed to putting people to work. Because I know, and all of you know, as Keith said, that a job, a better job, and a career is the pathway to a better life, a better community, a better world for generations to come. We are not only putting people to work, but we're doing so with an eye towards the future. We're doing so through this program that we have, the Clean Tech program that Keith mentioned earlier. We just had, it's brand new, in partnership with Accenture and some other partners, our first cohort of 30 participants just finished this program about 2 weeks ago. Y'all need to clap about that. So with this 30 participants finishing the program, we had 100% graduation, y'all. And for those of you that are still mathing while they were clapping, that means 100% completion. Not a single person dropped out of the class. To date, we've placed 2 of our graduates in clean tech jobs. And that may not sound like a lot out of 30, but it normally takes on average about 60 days to place participants after they've graduated from a program. And we have 2 with jobs only after 2 weeks of graduation. And we are working to keep up the momentum, and with the phenomenal Goodwill leadership team, I am confident that we can shorten that from 60 days, I don't know, but I might have just put out a challenge, a call to action of sorts, but, I'm just saying, we can do better. Not just to the Goodwill team, right? I made that challenge to the Goodwill team, but I'm also making that challenge to all of you. Right? Because it takes a village. It takes all of us to put people to work. So if you know anyone, you have a friend, a cousin, a next door neighbor who is hiring in the clean tech space, tell them to contact Goodwill, as T.I. would say expeditiously, with haste, because we have the talent that they need. You can visit that Goodwill table outside of this room to get more information on how to make that connection, because we want to talk to you. Now, because I never believed nor accepted any of the limits that society tried to place on me, I also stand before you as a managing director for Accenture, where we purposefully combine technology and human ingenuity to help our clients manage change. And I get the distinct honor and pleasure of leading our health and public service practice for Accenture Song for our South Market unit. And this is where I'm fortunate enough to have the opportunity to wake up every day and work at the intersection of my Wharton School education that I was privileged to have, my 26-year professional experience, and my purpose. And that's helping health organizations, state and local governments, higher education institutions, and not-for-profit organizations deliver on their ambitions to provide exceptional service and an optimal experience for all of their stakeholders. And I'm proud to work for an organization that says what it's gonna do and do it. An organization that believes the future workforce is an equal one, have set bold goals to accelerate gender equality, and we did so publicly. Acts on our commitments to gender equality by providing targeted support, flexible work arrangements, comprehensive training programs, and benefits and more to support our women in achieving their aspirations, personally and professionally. A company that supports the community programs like the ones we have here at Goodwill and initiatives that drive gender equality and equal opportunity across the globe. Our history of supporting gender equality is a long one. We launched our official inclusion and diversity strategy back in 1995. And I'm so proud about the progress that we've made. We are well on our way towards achieving gender parity by 2025. That's just a year away. As of December of this past year, 2023, 48% of our global workforce are women. And where it matters, because we need women at the top. So let me tell you about this stat. 30% of all of our managing directors, that's pretty much the highest level you can get in our firm, are women. And we're 2 years ahead of our goal. If we don't talk about it, we be about it, right? Accenture hosted its first International Women's Day celebration back in 2005. We're not new to this, y'all. This is our 20th year of celebration. And every year since, our people around the world, not just here in North America, not just here in Atlanta, but around the world, to celebrate women. We learn from each other. We have meaningful conversations on how we can continue to advance gender equity. We know that supporting women means good business. All women at Accenture are mentored and supported at every stage of their careers, including free access to online and self-development platforms. We offer flexible work arrangements, as I said before. So y'all, I'm so happy to welcome you all. And I want to thank you for prioritizing this, because I know we all have busy schedules, but prioritizing this time to celebrate our women. And that goes for all of our allies in the room as well, to recognize our progress and how we can continue to support gender equity and each other to be without limits. Told y'all they gave me 15, I used about 7 of them, so I'm about to use the other 7. This theme is important because we are without limits. This allows us not to only maximize ourselves, but it also allows us to be a light source. We don't have limits, you can be an energy source for others. When we're without limits, we can be the leaders we ought to be for ourselves and for somebody else. We can be the force no matter who we are, where we are in our careers, no matter our occupation, no matter our age, no matter our title. Zamantangwa Kumulo, she's a World Economic Forum global shaper. She became a global shaper when she was about 19 or so as part of an essay competition, if you're not familiar with her. She wrote about responsible and responsive leadership, which led to her attending the World Economic Forum, their annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland in 2017. And she said, responsive leadership has no title, no age group, and has very little to do with whether or not you're an elected official or a CEO of a company. Responsive leadership is our ability to take action and achieve and play our part. And when we have no limits, we can do that. When we operate without limits, we can provide limitless support to one another. We can support each other. And when we support each other, incredible things do in fact happen. And this quote by one of my favorite poets of all time, go buy her books, Audre Lorde, sums up being without limits and how harnessing the power of solidarity expands us. It doesn't take away from us. And it's beneficial to our very own existence. She said, owning our collective voice in solidarity is not a matter of altruism. Solidarity comes from the inability to tolerate the affront to our own integrity, of the passive or active collaboration of the oppression of others, and from a deep recognition of our most expansive self-interest. She was saying that if we do not use our limitless power and solidarity with and for other women, then we are complicit. Let me say that plainer. She said if we're not standing in solidarity, we are a part of the problem. She said by using our limitless, unbound power to help others, we help ourselves. We are our sister's keepers. And I'll leave you with this thought, because we, in fact, have no limits to what we can accomplish and who we can become. Each of us, in fact, has a responsibility to be our sister's keepers. Each of us has a responsibility to provide each other with support, the benefit of the doubt, the coaching, the mentoring, the sponsorship, the tough love, and most of all, the kindness and the compassion that for so long we haven't been provided. Because what we needed wasn't understood. We got to do that for each other. And as women, each of us have a responsibility to use the privilege and the power of where we stand right now, of our unbounded potential to lift as we climb. I read a quote once that said, a strong woman stands up for herself. We can do that by being without limits. But a stronger woman stands up for other women. We do this by using the power of being with no limits to help someone else get there too. To what is given each of us is also required of each of us. Now with that, I'm going to introduce you to the beautiful, the inspiring, the incomparably talented Rose Scott, who will kick off our panel discussion. But first, let me remind you of who we had the honor of hosting our panel today. Because if you didn't know, now you're gonna know. She is the award-winning journalist and host of NPR's midday news program, Closer Look. And if you don't already do so, I need you to tune in to 90.1 FM WABE. Do it today, then tell a friend to do it tomorrow if you don't get to him in time. Rose has interviewed foreign heads of states, cabinet members, U.S. ambassadors, numerous consul generals, state and local elected officials, as well as civic and social leaders. She's here with us today, y'all. Closer Look isn't just any program that she's hosting, but it has become a signature broadcast for the community and brings together viewpoints from all sectors of our society. In her more than 20 years of doing this, y'all, she's covered everything from education, minority health issues, Atlanta's historically black colleges and universities, gender issues, and even sports. She can cover it all, y'all. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Rose, to lead our panel discussion.
Can I call you Rose? She's like Can I call you Rose?
Rose. Hello, and happy International Women's Day. All right. Great minds think alike, because I actually have my own Audre Lorde quote that I want to kick things off with before we have the panelists introduce themselves. But first of all, thank you to Goodwill of North Georgia, to Keith Parker. I tease Keith all the time because it's just fun to do. But I am always honored when Keith calls and asks me or sends me a text, and Keith will send a text. Can you do this? Sure. But I believe in this organization, and I believe in what this organization is doing for so many people, especially people who look like me, and people who come from the communities that I come from. So as I say all the time, I say no more than I say yes. So anytime that this organization asks me just to play a small part in doing something, I'll do it, because I believe in the mission. And as journalists, they say, well, you're not supposed to, I'm not supposed to believe in helping people. I'm not supposed to believe in providing a pathway for people to have a better quality of life. Well, if that's breaking a tenet of what it means to be a good journalist, that's just one I'll just keep breaking, because I believe in this organization. So thank you, Keith, and thank you all so much. I want to begin with my Audre Lorde quote, because it is so profound, and it lends itself to what we're talking about today. Audre Lorde is also one of my favorite poets, one of my sheroes, one of my ancestors. She said, "I am not free while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are very different from my own." And when I first read that, probably when I was 16 or 17, can't remember, that stayed with me. Stayed with me. I saw my mother, who would help other women in our community. I saw my sisters, my aunts, who would help other young girls. My father, who would help people in our community. So that's a big part of what I do, why I do it, and when I do it, and how I do it, and when I fuss with politicians. If y'all were listening this week, I had a good old fuss this week, boy. Woo. Not to get them to change policy, but to understand the voices sometimes that they may not hear from. So that's why I do what I do, and I'm looking forward to this panel because, one, it's very diverse, and I appreciate that. Because sometimes people will invite me to panels, I'm like, why is it all white people? Or I was asked to do a panel a couple years ago, and there were no men on the panel, and the discussion was about the future of Atlanta. I'm like, I don't see women in the future of Atlanta? So my challenge to you today, for those of you that are in leadership positions, when you do something like this, or if you're going to put together some type of forum, make it diverse. And for Pete's sake, for Patricia's sake, include women. Please do that. So enough of Rose Scott on her high horse. I want to go ahead and let the panel introduce themselves. And then after we do that, we're going to have a robust conversation. Keith is looking a little nervous. He's like, where's she going to go? It won't be political, Keith, I promise. Just a little bit. And then I talked Emily into letting me have a Q&A, because I believe that when we have a space like this, it is an exchange of ideas, right, and ideology. So we'll have a little bit of 15 minutes just for comments or questions. It's because I think it's important. Y'all okay with that? Hey, y'all so quiet. But that's okay. I'm going to start with Erica.
Hello, everyone. I am Erica Campbell with Accenture, and I am an analyst in the Oracle practice.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jay Ambercar. I'm a managing director in our Accenture Song practice, serving alongside Winifred.
Hello, my name is Veronica Maldonado Torres, President and CEO of the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Good morning, Nancy Easterling, and I'm a director at Chick-fil-A Corporate.
All right. Nancy, I'm going to start with you, and we're going to work our way down here. When you reflect, look at where you are now, because we've all been on this journey, right? When you look at where you are now, and go back to when you were first starting in your career, how do you now see the value of mentoring, and in your role now as a woman, to mentor other young women and girls coming behind you?
Yeah, I think when I think back to when I started my career journey, what I would say is I was a little green, as you can imagine, and so I don't even know that I had a formal mentor. But what I can say as I reflect back is there were a lot of instrumental people in my life, both personal and professional, that I know supported me, encouraged me, and pushed me forward. And really, honestly, one that's coming to my mind right now is just my husband, for example. He decided early on that my trajectory from a career perspective was just going to be so much potentially better than his. He decided to stay home with our children and encouraged me, almost pushed me to go to work, because I think at that time I was thinking, well, I want to be a stay-at-home mom. I grew up in Chicago, but was actually early married stage in a very rural part of Georgia. And so all the women around me looked very similar to just not what I was doing in terms of career. But I say all that to say now fast forward to where I am today, and I think I have an opportunity to steward the leadership role that I've been given. And I think I read not too long ago about just this picture of you have one hand here where you're constantly creating, right, opportunity, and then you've got one hand behind you to ensure that you're bringing others with you and being very mindful of those being other women that might have been in my spot that I know I can encourage and push forward as well.
Thank you, Nancy. Veronica.
You know, I think about my formative years, and although I didn't have any real formal mentoring, I did grow up with a woman-owned business mother who surrounded me with the example of how to do things, surrounded me with other business women. And I was able to absorb a lot of that and really learn. It wasn't until I probably was about 30-ish that I really had my first kind of formal mentor. And I'll never forget, at 27, I was asked to join my very first board of directors, which I was like, I don't know what that is. But the lady said, I just see something in you. And I said, okay. She says, just go for it. You'll learn along the way. I said, okay, as long as you're there to help me. I jumped on that board, really was supported by a group of amazing women from all ages and all facets of life. And within that role of volunteering and supporting that board, I ran into this other lovely lady who saw me speaking one day. And, you know, fast forward, she reached out to me and offered me a job. And she said, listen, I don't know for what season or for what reason or how long you're going to be with me, but I know you should be with me. And that was the best decision that I ever made. She showed me kindness apart from my mother. She showed me that you could work hard and build without tearing people down. Last year, I lost my mentor to a very tragic situation with domestic violence in her home with her daughter, and it was all over the headlines and news. But I think about how she reached out and tapped me and saw something in me. I think about that lady who reached out and tapped me and said, you should be on a board. I think you've got skill sets that could really add to this. I think about not having or not knowing what I had, but having the opportunity to do that. And then fast forward thinking about my mentor and how she gave me the opportunity and how she shared those nuggets that I couldn't see in myself. You know, I look at my situation now, I feel super blessed that I think about what am I doing? What's my legacy? Because I've got a 7-year-old daughter. And I need to make sure that I'm doing my part to support this next generation and having those whispers and those moments and someone reaching out and saying, hey, you know what? I see something really, really amazing in you. You should join this leadership program. You should sign up for this. So my mentality today around mentoring, whether it's formal or informal, is if you see an opportunity to learn from somebody, if somebody makes you kind of want to strengthen in that particular area, ask them for some time. I have been blessed now to mentor a lot of women, and at the end of the day, I think that is the legacy that we leave behind. It's kind of that oral tradition of being a woman, formally or informally, make sure that we're giving that back. So today, you know, I really just work on being intentional and taking the time, even between the hustle and bustle, of giving people time and attention, even if it's 5 minutes, to say, I see something in you. And I think we all need that.
Absolutely. Jay.
First of all, what a beautiful gathering. I feel like many of the women who are here, in the audience could be here, on this panel. So I'm feeling so blessed. Also, to your point, Rose, amongst this diverse panel, which was formed intentionally and deliberately. So feel really blessed about that. In terms of mentorship, when I started my career, I was the first woman to graduate from my family, the first generation graduate of my family. If it's okay to share like a small story, my great-grandmother had her name engraved as a tattoo in her hand because she had zero literacy. She could not read or write. She was a young widow, a single mother of over 10 kids, so she had to run the business. So when she had to sign important business documents, she would look at the tattoo and recreate that in the business documents that she had to sign. But what she was also a savvy businesswoman and a great storyteller. My grandmother was educated only till 4th grade, but she self-taught herself to read and write in 4 languages and wrote over 20 books about our culture and our religion. My mom went through high school, but was asked to drop out to support the college education of her 4 brothers that was prioritized. For my parents chose to send me to an engineering school back home over spending that money for what we call back home dowry, or a gift that's given to marriage. And my father stood up to a community and said, my daughter is going to go to engineering college, and she will pay her, she'll choose her on her own who she is going to marry. So I stand on their shoulders. And when I started my career, there were a few things that I had decided in my mind that one has to see it to be it. We have to see it, we have to see representation to be it. And that is why this diverse panel inspires me. And when I see other women, who can model maybe a little bit of who we are, that inspires me. And when it comes to mentorship, Winifred beautifully talked about, the diversity we have in our senior leadership. I was the first Indian woman to make managing director in Atlanta. While it's okay to be the first, it is not okay to be the only. Mm-hmm. It's never okay to be the only. So there is room for everyone. We have to have that abundance mindset. And that comes with practicing mentorship intentionally. We have to pay it forward. We have to lift up as we rise up. So just like Veronica, just like Nancy, making that time to coach and mentor, and just sometimes listen to make your sisters believe that they can do, that we see something in them, and reinforce in them when they are in doubt, is how I think, in my position today, I try to give back.
Thank you. I love that. Practice mentoring intentionally. Thank you so much. Erica.
For me, I'm going to say that mentorship is very important to me. I had mentors very early on. Both of my grandmothers were nurses. They were in the healthcare field. I got to see my mother, who is here today, who is manager of procurement in her industry, which is healthcare as well. And every year, one of my grandmothers would take me to Medical University of South Carolina for Take Your Kids Work Day. So I got to see leadership in action very early on. Growing up in the Baptist church, I would say that we had no choice but to see leadership, to be nurtured, to be mentored, to make sure that we knew who we were and that we succeed in life. So I say that to say that serving, I see it as serving people. We were taught to serve people in any and everyone. So when I see, someone who needs help, someone who needs assistance, encouragement, that's just part of what was instilled in me, and that you don't let anybody lack when you have to give and can pull them up with you. So that's why it's important to me.
Thank you. Where's Mom? You said Mom is here? Stand up, Mom. I'm gonna put you out there. Yay for Mom. Where are you taking her for Mother's Day? Is it a surprise, secret?
Wherever she wants to go.
Wherever she wants to go. Tiffany. Epiphanies. The global theme for International Women's Day is inspire inclusion, and I know the theme for this particular event is be without limits. And Erica, I'll stay with you. When you hear this term, be without limits, it's a great rallying cry, right? But it's a mindset too. And through your lens, how do you think we need to start instilling that, not just in the women we work with, but probably even before? Do we start maybe in elementary, middle school, changing that, instilling in the mindset that you can be without limits, so that perhaps by the time they get to our age or where we are, they don't have to worry about, am I going to be fairly treated as a woman? Am I going to be fairly compensated? All those things that go with that. Should we start really working, if we're not saying organizations aren't, but should we really have a movement that really gets young girls to understand you can do whatever you want, be without limits?
I say it starts now, and it starts early. I would say just with my own daughter, I have a 12-year-old, soon to be 13-year-old, and not putting limits on them as a parent, per se, to let them express themselves and to unlearn some of the biases that we were taught coming up, in a sense of, oh, well, you can't do this, or you can't wear that, or, oh, you're too young for makeup, or, those type of things, to let them express themselves how they want to express themselves versus putting limits on them, saying, okay, well, no, society will see you this way, so no, you can't do that, versus seeing their authentic self, their creativity, and who they actually are. So I say it starts with home, to show them that we're not fighting them, we're not against them, we're not holding them back to be who they truly are, because when they go out into the world, they're going to have that. So it starts from home for me.
Thank you. Jay?
I completely agree with Erica. Maybe just two aspects, right? One is my daughter is 8 years old, and she wants to be an actress. I'm like, do you see us? We are engineers or doctors or lawyers. Even if you don't have a Patel last name, that's what you're going to be. But to see her wanting to be an actress, and to say just because no one has ever done that in several generations doesn't mean that she cannot, right? So should not stop her from dreaming. And what part she might get when she grows up in Hollywood. Maybe Hollywood might be a different place with a lot more diversity and representation by then. Just not to limit her from her dreams, like Erica said. So that is one aspect of how do we cultivate being that without limits. And the second aspect for me is for us to change or be intentional about our self-talk. Sometimes as women, we tend to focus more on what we can't versus what we can. And if my daughter was next to me, she would correct my accent, but you all know what I'm trying to say. It's focusing on what we can and what we, not like being so, focusing on what we can do, right? So having that positive self-talk, owning our narrative, and having that abundance mentality. And what I mean by abundance mentality is just what Rose, you mentioned, and Jennifer, we have room for everyone. And when we walk into a room and we are not looking for, do I have a seat in this table? Versus our mindset goes to, what are the tables I can build so I can make room for everybody to have a seat at the table. I think those aspects of not limiting our dreams, our children's dream, the aspects of being intentional about our self-talk, and then having that abundance mindset is what being without limits means to me.
Y'all are dropping gems. I hope y'all writing some of this down. This is great. Veronica.
Yeah, again, I really got to give my mom a lot of props because she just always told me I could be anything that I wanted to be. And I believed her. She said, you're just going to have to work really hard. And I saw the hard work ethic every day. And and the tenacity in which she faced her adversity and challenges. And it taught me that you can achieve your greatest dreams. You have to be willing to be resilient in those moments of adversity, but you can get through to the other side. And, you know, I was asked at one point, you know, what do you think has made you successful? I was in a room full of Coca-Cola executive women. And they're like, you know, when we walk into a room, we see the bias with men and this and the other. And I said, I'm just going to be really honest with you. I think if you start to see all the barriers, you're never going to go past them. And I think that that's the first thing we understand, and we talk about the systemic barriers that exist, but we cannot allow those barriers to keep us from building on what we know is capable and possible for us. If we're always stopped at the limitation, we won't be limitless. And so it is a mindset. And several years ago, and I have a theme for every year of my life. This year is Reclaim the Light and Reclaim Me for many reasons. Maybe we'll get a chance to talk about that later. But one of my years, my power themes was break out of the barriers. And it was the confines and the barriers of maybe how I saw myself, of how other people saw me, of what I should be, of what I could be. I said, I don't want to live in a box. I want to build whatever I want to build. So when we talk about boundaryless and, fluidity, I think that that's how we have to think about our lives and our careers, and not allow us to be confined by the constructs of society, of gender. And as I tell my daughter, and as my mother said to me, I look at her in the face, I grab her so that she sees me eye to eye, and I say, you can be anything that you want to be. But you know what? You have to crazy believe in yourself before anybody else will believe in you. Yeah. And I think that goes to my last point, is that I think in order to believe in something, you have to understand what your worth is and what you bring to the table. And I think oftentimes, and because I went through it myself, I had to figure out, oftentimes we think, am I worthy? Should I be here? Do I know enough? And I had those moments sitting with 4 amazing men like 2 years ago. And I was like, how did Veronica Maldonado Torres get up here? And then I reminded myself, I am worthy. I bring value. I know what I'm talking about. And I think it is, if I can say anything to any person, first of all, and then of course any woman, is understand that you intrinsically already bring value. There is not another Veronica, there's not another Keith, there's not another Lisa, there's not another Marianette. Jay, we are like an individual amazingness of awesomeness. And if we believe that, then nothing can truly limit us, and we can walk in the confidence of the opportunities either presented to us or the ones that we create for ourselves. So, finally, your worth. Know your worth, what you bring. Love yourself. Understand what love means for you so that you can go out and live the fullest extent of your life and live it deliberately. And whatever adversity comes, because nobody on this earth goes without a moment of adversity. I think that the last 2.5 years, which have been my most visibly successful years to others, have probably been my most difficult personal years. And so adversity is here, it happens, learning how to overcome it, and that each day is a new day to believe in the possibility of your dreams.
Thank you. Wow.
It's hard to follow that. That was very inspirational.
You have your own awesomeness, Nancy.
Well, thank you. I am worthy. I think I was thinking about 3 different points, and some of that was touched on by all of these amazing panelists up here. First, role model. And I think, you all touched on that, right? So my role model was my mom. And early on, so my parents, just so you guys know a little bit about my story and my journey, I was 6 when we immigrated to the United States, born in Korea. My dad was very high up in the government in Korea, graduated from the best law school there, and only law school, I think, and decided to leave all of that to come. And my parents, they took on menial jobs, and then at night they cleaned office buildings. And I remember going with them, like when we had summer break or whatever, and I'd go down the halls and take trash cans and empty those and all of that. So I say all that to say they sacrificed a lot for me and my brother, and it was for us to live the American dream. And so I think when you have something like that and you have a role model like that, and you know that you're working towards something, for something, that is a huge motivator. But my role model early on was my mom. Just a real quick story, my parents came, they wanted to own a business, didn't want to work for someone. They worked really hard, great work ethic, as you mentioned, about your mom. And they opened up a business, and it was failing. My mom actually still worked for Motorola, and my dad opened up this business, and probably about 3 years in, he came home and said, I think I'm going to have to close this place down. She went out with him on a weekend, very, very quick story. She said, it was a dry cleaner. And she said, this dry cleaner should not be failing. Like, it's in a great neighborhood, lots of homes, and businesses as well, great intersection. I mean, so for all of those reasons, she kind of stepped out on faith, quit her job, came over, and fast forward 6 years, and it was probably the most successful dry cleaner in a 30-mile radius. I mean, I remember their customers saying, we passed like literally 3 different towns to come to yours. And the magic sauce to that turnaround was my mom. It was that she was the face of the business, and she encouraged and loved and supported all of the people that worked there as well as the customers, and they wanted to come and interact with her. So that kind of role modeling for me was so critical in my journey because I think about, like, I'm very results-oriented, process over people, and I realized early on that, oh my goodness, I can't be successful without really thinking about the people, the relationships. So I think role model. If you don't have a role model like that, or if you know someone that doesn't have a role model like that, then expose them to other people, other families, different people that you come into contact with, and certainly yourself. Second, I think it is around, so role modeling first. I think the self-talk was very important. So you talked about that whole I am worthy. The person that we hear most often is ourselves. And so it is so critical for you to believe it. You have to self-talk it. And so sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. You may not believe it in that certain moment. Maybe you have, maybe you've had a hard day. Maybe you've had a hard year. But you have to speak life into your own self. And then that actually changes the outlook that you have, and that's going to actually spill over on others as well. And then the final thing is I'm a mom of 2 daughters, 27, 24. I'm just super, super proud of them. One's a clinical pediatric pharmacist, and the other one is a marketing director. And I have wonderful adult relationships with them. And what I wanted to do early on, for you moms out here, you probably are thinking the same thing. I wanted to protect them. And I'm a woman of faith, so pray for God to protect them. Don't let them have to, deal with but adversity. If I think about, as a leader, what some of the most compelling kind of leadership philosophies and how I wanted to shape myself as a leader and my leadership style came from working for leaders that were bad. And those were some of the most miserable years of my life from a career perspective. But having gone through that adversity, I can tell you I'm a much better person coming out of that. And I think about how going through the fire just really, we emerge so much better, stronger, wiser. And so I do want to protect them from physical harm, but I don't always want to protect them from the hard stuff, because they're going to be much better human beings and much better versions of themselves. So I would just say, help your children to know their worth, help them to, like, the practice of self-talk and positive self-talk, but then also allow them to go through some failures so that they can actually emerge better.
What's the saying, that adversity doesn't build character but reveals it? Yeah. Let's talk about value. I want to stay with that theme for a second, so y'all just bear with me. If you were alive in 1982, raise your hand. Come on, Keith. Hey, 1982, if you know you were alive in 1982. You're trying to front. All right. 1982, women earned about 65 cents to every dollar a man made. 2022, roughly around 79, 80%, something like that. I was talking to a colleague, a male colleague, about today and telling him I wanted to talk about the gender gap. And I threw those stats out at him, and he said, with all sincerity, "That's great." I said, "No, it's not." He's like, "Really?" I said, "No. Why isn't it $1 per dollar? Heck, why isn't it more?" He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." So, and when I call somebody dude, when I say, "Dude, really?" He's like, "Yeah, I know when you say that, Rose, I'm in trouble." When we talk about closing this gender gap, this gender pay gap here, is it something that we can really policy our way out of? Does it take legislation? Or really is it going to have to take this holistic approach, whether it's a small mom and pop on up to the Fortune 500s, that it really has to be a movement, a trend that we see in terms of closing this gap, making it equal? And I'll start with you, Jay. What do you think?
Yeah, I think policies are great, but I think it's going to come from the culture that we intentionally build to get us there, right? And I believe that it is going to take all of us, our allies, men, women, anyone who identifies differently, all of them. So one thing that, we should think about is how are we going to build that allyship for us to help women, get what they deserve. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you, Ross. Why is it not more? Because it's probably more work that we put in, along with taking care of our home, along with taking care of our driving them to class, and then showing up, and then traveling. I believe we should be paid more. So one way that we could do that is by calling people in versus calling people out. And what I mean by that is, let's give everyone a purpose, and that purpose is to advance women. And they want that purpose. We don't have people who are on the other side, and that's at least what I want to believe. I want to believe in the goodness of I want to believe in humanity. And if we intentionally build allyship, and you hear me use this word intentionality a lot, please bear with me, but we have to intentionally build that allyship by calling people in. Hey, we have this problem, and you could be part of the solution by doing X, Y, Z. We only have less than 10 women in this role in this area, and this is how you could help. Mm-hmm. And when we call people in versus, conforming to some narrative and alienating them, mm-hmm. I think we can get there along with policies.
All right. Erica?
I'm going to piggyback off of what she said. We have to be intentional about what it is that we would like to see, which is, women being paid equally to men. Also, just proving our worth, standing up for ourselves, being without limits, making sure that we do partner and just be intentional about the movement of, us being brought up to the same pay rate as men.
Absolutely.
So I think, oh, are you going to?
Veronica, you go.
Okay, yes.
So
You ready, aren't you? Okay, Ashley, we're going to get to it.
I'm ready because I'm passionate about this subject. No, I think we all are passionate. We all should be passionate. I mean, statistically, there are more women, in the United States than men. Sorry, guys, it's true. And we need the values, and the skill sets that women bring to the workplace. And we need to continue to advance those avenues. I think the statistic is around that women lose about $1 million in their lifetime because of a couple of things. And during the pandemic, before taking on my role, there were two things that I did that really highlighted a lot of what I think we need to work on in order to advance women pay equity and women in the workplace. And I had the blessing, because it opened up my eyes, to facilitating a couple of corporate leadership programs with actually corporate Latinas. And number one is one of the main reasons that we miss out on that, $1 million in our lifetime is that we do need to learn some skill sets. Number one is negotiation. That's very, very real. Yes, yes, we can, but we also need to equip our women to be able to stand on their worth and their value and to speak up. And for a lot of us, those are cultural constructs that we're confined to. In our, Latino community, it's, you're quiet, you would just work hard, and then maybe somebody will pay attention that you're doing amazing work and give you a promotion. And it doesn't really work like that. Making sure that women are shaping their brand and their value, but not in a way that's snubbing their peers or undermining or pushing other people down, but just quite simply sharing that I'm adding to this pot. So negotiation skills is number one. Number two is making sure that, women are doing the job to brand, to network internally within their organizations and externally. I definitely see it with a lot of corporate women, and I love y'all. Y'all work so hard on that internal corporate ladder that you forget to do that externally unless you start looking for a job. So just something to think about. I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but and then I think too, so that leadership program that I helped facilitate and kind of help women move in that upward mobility was also making sure that our cultures, our corporate cultures and our community cultures, so I'll kind of show you that piece too, that our corporate cultures do have our women BRG, that there are mentoring and sponsoring opportunities, that we're providing that professional development and that mentoring experience and learning from some of those male attributes that, whether we like to, see it or not, are the, strategic, assertive, some of those skill sets that come a little bit more difficult for us because we have the other parts of the Athena piece, which is the empathy, the collaborating, which are skill sets that our workforce society needs. That's where we can add that value. But we also have to learn how to play on those maybe perceived more male cultural skill sets so that we can advance. So it's part of a larger strategy. The last thing that I'll share, during the pandemic, I was able to work with one of our technology partners as a consultant. And they had about a super crazy high attrition rate with their women workforce. And it was like something nuts, like 54%. And so, and it's a very big technology. It's a worldwide company. And I came in as a consultant to try to, really help mentor their women's group. And I said, let's survey what's going on here. And there was a lack of flexibility. There was a lack of a sense of belonging and connection. There were no resources. It was they're coming to work and leaving. And we know that when women go to work, you've got to have one friend to make sure you stay. That's what the studies say. So you've got to build that ecosystem and that community. And I said, look, we need to launch the Global Women's Leadership Initiative. And we started with, this 3-year vision, 1 year at a time. And I'm just so happy to say that those attrition rates have gone down significantly. And while our corporate community has got that BRG component, that's one of the things I'm proudest of too, is that whether you are a small business, whether you are connected to corporate or whether you're just a woman, it's connecting to women's groups and organizations that can also help you with your professional development, with your sense of belonging, and for your ability to advocate for what you already bring to the table. So thankfully, we're excited to have one of those initiatives at our organization where people can plug into. But yes, policy has to be a part of making sure that women have what they need to be successful at home and in the world and participating. And we know childcare is an issue as well, so we could go all down that route. But I really do think that we need to own our future as women, and we also need to learn some of those skill sets and create those cultures where we can advance and bring what we already bring to the table.
Thank you. Nancy.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and address it from the perspective of just take action. I think an action can be that you have the autonomy and you have the position or to actually own the decision, right? So I'll talk a little bit about that, but then it may be that you're on the other end, which is you don't have the decision-making power, but you have the ability to influence. And so I'll end on that. But so if you're further on in your career and you've been blessed to be in a role where you can actually take action and make decisions, then do it. So I think it's things like putting into an executive scorecard, right? Percentage of women in leadership. Get it done. Bring people along. And create that compelling case to go ahead and implement something. It could be that it's childcare at work, right? So as women, we know what some of those barriers are and what is going to help make other women successful. So take action when you've been given that platform. On the other hand, you might be early on in your career, or maybe you're further in your career, but you don't have the decision on those critical items. Well, influence. And I think the reality of it is we can go in and be a bull in a china shop, and you lose all influence depending on what organization and what culture you are working within. So I would say really understand kind of the sandbox that you're playing in. What does success look like in the organization that you are a part of? What is that culture? And then be self-aware. How do you fit in? Is that a natural fit? Then you may be able to just influence in a natural way. But if it's not a natural fit, you have to be intentional about how you show up. And so it may take longer. It may take a lot more allies, as Jay talked about. But the how you do it is going to look different based on who you are, where you work, and that culture. But I think all of us have an opportunity to influence. And then for those that have the ability to actually make the decision, I think you have to act.
All right. I'm going to get to your questions and comments in just a moment, but I think ending this conversation about something that's very important, and it's life-saving. Are you able to balance your mental and physical wellness with all that we've talked about? Are you able to do that? If you have some struggles, that's okay. You can admit, I have some struggles, because then I think that also lends itself to how we navigate through all of this. Eric, I'll start with you. Are you able to manage your physical and your mental through all this?
Yes, I am. I make sure that, like we were saying earlier, you hear yourself the most. So having that time to set aside, journal, I do a lot of journaling, to just put, on paper or on an app or however you may feel, your day to sit down and reflect. Accenture does a good job with making sure that we are pretty stable mentally. We have a lot of resource groups that we can join and take time, out of our day, whether it's 30 minutes, an hour or so, just to have mindfulness. Being truly human is one of our things at Accenture, is to be truly human, to make sure that, we step away from the computer, make sure that we go take a walk, make a phone call, check on your kids, just call a family member, friend, or however, but to make sure that, your mindfulness is there and clear, that we're not, just bogged down in client work all the time. So managing both is very important, and I think I manage it pretty well.
All right, thank you. Jay?
I wish.
Yeah, I know.
I wish. The struggle is really all. I have an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old, and some days are good days, and some days are not so good days. I do struggle a lot with work-life integration and also with the sense of belonging. And when I immigrated to this country 14 years ago, I always questioned, do I belong here? The community that I live in, kids play lacrosse, women are wine club. I do none of that. My kids don't play lacrosse, don't drink, don't eat meat, just stand out a lot. And initially, I tried to assimilate. I did try to drink. I didn't feel good. Not that when I was doing it, not the next day morning. So gave up, didn't do that. So, and then there came a point in my life where I became comfortable standing out and standing up and using my voice, and not being able to assimilate or fit in didn't bother me much. But that struggle is still real. As an immigrant, the imposter syndrome is still real. Reinforcing our self-worth when we are walking into a room is still real. So there are days when I wake up and question my existence. And, I'm like, am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? And I do practice mindfulness meditation, practice yoga practitioner for last 15 years. And more importantly, what I do is, where can I go to fill my cup? I go meet, and Benifer, I had dinner a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, sister, fill my cup, please. I need it. And it was a great day, and I do it, and I also do it for others as much as I can, and try to balance, but it's a juggling act here. So there are some days, but just knowing that that's okay, and reaffirming to yourself that's okay, and just kind of holding hands with other women who are in the same boat and rising up together is kind of how I manage it.
All right. Veronica?
This is like a much longer conversation.
I know, I'm sorry.
I was kind of born with this heal the world and make it a better place mindset. I'm a very type A human being. I'm either all in or all out. And I have been learning how to balance that. And what I really call it now is energy management. How can I manage my energy? Last year, I did like 110 events. I was super crazy. My infrastructure, the last 7 years, I had help. I had an amazing woman helping me at home to keep my home together, pick up my kids so that I could go and be all that I wanted to be. And that changed in December. And I learned and I felt the pain of the disruption of the childcare piece. As, the CEO of an organization where there's a lot going on in a lot of places. I traveled to like 6 different countries last year and all across the US and a lot of Georgia. And I reminded myself, your output may not be the same this year until you get that piece figured out, but you can't expect that same result without having the same infrastructure. And then I started to say, I'm just going to be kind to myself and do the best. So I have learned the last 8 years of my life, I wake up and at 8:30 to 9, it didn't happen today, but 8:30 to 9, I have a prayer group. And that is my Bible. It is what keeps me sane in a very transformative time in history and in life. It keeps me grounded to my purpose. I am a woman of faith. And what I realized when I'm going off the Richter scale is that when I don't give myself the permission to pause, and that's my thing, the permission to pause, everything else goes off the rail. So this year, my challenge to myself is I can still be awesome. It's just going to have to be really confined. And I'm going to have to find that new reality if and when I find that piece that helps. But I also feel like it's God's redirection in that I can be purposeful at home with a 14-year-old freshman in high school who's making me a little crazy right now, and a 7-year-old girl who wants to take on the world way more than I do, and to be more purposeful as a parent because that is my legacy. And as much as I want to take on this world and give it my best, they are my entire world. And so I have felt that redirection, and I've given myself the grace to transition and to redefine what winning and success looks like for Veronica in 2024. Because it may not be what I did the last 2 years. It's still going to be good, but it just may not be that much. And so it's allowed me to be more purposeful. When I don't give myself permission to pause and reflect, I lose sight of the lessons of what that moment of adversity has taught me, or something that I should really be reflecting on as a mom, as a woman, as a person. And what I've done is reconnect to relationships, right? Relationships, whether it's my family who is like, I'm not going to invite you anymore because you couldn't show up. And I said, that can't be my life. That's who I need to show up for. I want you, and y'all refill me. So there are now things that I don't compromise. And there are things that I make very sacred. And that has helped me reestablish a sense of well-being on top of the fact that, when disruption happens, whether it's the pandemic or a job or something in your infrastructure changes, it's because it's time to create a new world. And that's exactly what I'm doing.
All right, thank you. Nancy, you get the last word here.
Yeah, so I'm an empty nester, and so I have phenomenal work-life balance right now.
We have that good envy going on.
I mean, but you know what? It is a season, because this is before I have grandkids, but it's just been amazing. But what I will say is I think I was probably the busiest in my career, professional and personal life, in my 30s. And I had to learn how to say no. And so there are a lot of amazing things that you are going to have an opportunity to be a part of, to be able to contribute to. You're going to have to say no. And so I do think a lot of that is doing a self-assessment of what is my purpose, what's my calling, and then where can I uniquely contribute, and where do I get the joy and fulfillment, and then say yes to those things, and then say no to those others. And I'm a firm believer that, especially like at church, when people come and ask you to do this and do that, there are certain things that I am so charged up and energized about and get such great fulfillment. And then others where I would walk away going, oh, that was just awful. I feel drained. And what I realized was when I said no the next time around, God had already brought someone else that was their calling, and they were uniquely gifted to actually walk away feeling so inspired and so motivated, that was just totally opposite for me. So just doing that self-assessment and then saying yes to the right things, and absolutely it's okay to say no to the wrong things. But I do think that there are times when you can't say no to all of those things, right? Because there's going to be things that are pulling at you. So when you think about, oh, I want to be positioned better for a potential promotion, well, I don't want to say no to that today, but I really don't have the capacity. Make sure that when you say yes to those things, that you have a time frame. So I think about, like, this too shall pass. When I was in executive MBA, I mean, like, every single bit of my free time, as Jay's in it right now, every single bit of my free time was gone. But you know what? It was for 18 months. And so I could actually clock down and tick down the time. And then after that, I made sure I had a lot of no's, and so that I could really recharge. And I think that's the last thing, is know where you find joy and where you truly can recharge. And if that is, I think that's a lot of, like, your personality, I versus E. It could be family. It could be, like, action, like it could be going and doing something, but make sure you fill your time when you are not doing all of those things with that, even if it's just for a short time, so that you can recharge and be better. But I am also, like, one last thing that I'll mention, a firm believer that you cannot be good to anyone around you, whether it's your team at work, whether it's your colleagues, whether it is your kids, your family, your husband, your friends, unless you are good. And so, to first and foremost, when we go fly, they always say, put that mask on first before. And I think as a mom, you immediately want to go protect my children. But if you're not okay, you can protect them, but at the end of the day, you're not protecting them. So just making sure that you are focusing on your own self-care, I think, is very important.
Thank you. I am a woman of my word, so we're going to take time for one comment about something that stood out from you today. And I want it from someone, this is your first time here. So raise your hands, this is your first time here. And then if you want to comment on something that stood out for you today, I'll call on you. Who wants to do it? Back there in the back, I saw that hand up first.
Microphone. Okay. I really enjoyed the authenticity of what was discussed today on the panel. One of the things that stood out to me the most was standing out and standing up. I believe, especially when we work in corporate environments and the diversity in which we work, in now, when you recognize that things are different about you, not being uncomfortable is a challenge. And so I think I personally have began to settle in understanding that I stand out and being comfortable in standing up in that, and knowing that that difference sometimes brings value to the team, strengths, and a different mindset and point of view. And so that was one of the things that stood out to me the most. And one more thing was, where do you go to fill your cup? I think that's part of it as well. So thank you for those things.
Thank you. Erica, Jay, Veronica, Nancy, thank you so much for being part of this. Thank you all. And we have somebody coming up next. I don't know who, but yeah.
So, ladies, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Wow, I get to close after that. So hopefully everyone got some good nuggets, but let's give them another round of applause. So my name is Nidra Dixon, and I'm also managing director at Accenture, but I think I have one of the coolest jobs ever. I get to travel around the world and help small businesses that could be women, African American, veteran, LGBTQ, people with disabilities, and help them grow their own businesses and integrate them into the supply chain and work with corporate America. That's pretty damn cool, right? So I want to take a little different angle to wrap all the great things that they had. And see, I got all those notes already. So one of the things I know we've been talking about with women in the workforce, but when you think about it, there's so many women-owned businesses. And I'm going to take a few minutes to give you just a few little stats here. So about 42% of all businesses in the U.S. are owned by women, all right? In the last 7 years, 17% of the business that have grown have been women-led. If you look at around the total entrepreneurial in the U.S. makeup of women, they employ most of the people in their communities. Y'all see where I'm going with these stats, right? Almost 15% of the U.S. in the business reported have been women entrepreneurs that continue to grow. 37% of women investors are more likely to invest in a startup. So when you got all those great ideas, it's a woman that's really going to go and invest. One of the stats I thought was really interesting is that women are more likely to start a business with 0 employees. What does that mean? That means they get it done, right? So when you think about that, let's think about some of the good nuggets that we heard today. So I like the young lady. I'm sorry, what was your name? Who was that spoke? Rachel, I like some of the things that you said as well. And when we think about it, it was around, I think this was Winifred, around your quote on solidarity. And that's what I've seen today. That's what I heard from our panelists. But they all said that if you don't see the barriers, then sometimes you see them and they're in your way. Break those barriers. Go around those barriers. The culture, stand out, stand up. Break out of your own way. Crazy believe in yourself. Walk in confidence. Self-talk it. How many people in here talk to themselves? All right, we're going to be positive when we do that. Our parents can be our role models. Anyone can be our role models. Exposure to other women. Adversity doesn't build it, it reveals it. I think I got that right, Rose. Allyship. Be an ally to someone that might not look like you, that might not walk in your shoes. Women lose about $1 million in their lifetime. So we need to learn the art of negotiating. Make sure we negotiate all the great work that we do. Take action. I think I heard about take action. It was important to balance your mental and physical health. I was over there going, am I doing that? It's okay to know that you're not doing that. But now it's really important that we do. Empty nesters rock. I heard that. I always say no is a complete sentence. I say that to myself all the time. Know where to find your joy. Find a prayer group, whatever fills your soul. Also, I think it's real important to think about that when we look at so many different women, we are the first. And I think Jay said, it's okay to be the first, but don't be the only one. So if you know me, you know I love shoes. I absolutely love shoes. My mother and my grandmother, I'm from Arkansas, and my grandmother on my dad's side is Choctaw, so I lived on a reservation for about the first 3 or 4 years of my life. And what they always told me was that if you ever lower your head, it's only to admire the shoes that you're wearing on your feet. Never lower your heads. and don't be without limits. Thank you all very much.
So just wanted to say thank you again one more time for coming out today for International Women's Day. I did want to take a little moment to point out Miss Veronica Lightburn, who is one of our Goodwill graduates. She's also an Accenture employee. And when we were putting together this panel talking about mentorship, we asked her, we were like, you've been on the panel, we've heard from you, we love you, and we would love to bring a new voice. And she immediately said Erica, that Erica has been a wonderful mentor to her, and Erica also graduated from our Goodwill program. And so we just wanted to point out both of those ladies. We do have our Goodwill table right outside of these doors, so if you would like to go on a tour of our Career Center and learn more about our programming, I invite you to do that. Also, these are $5 gift cards, so after you finish your tour, you can go shopping on your way out. So please enjoy and take a gift card with you. And yeah, and this is Veronica's face on here, so awesome. Thank you all so much.